You don't need to remove your fears, you just need to see beyond them. Believing that you need to have confidence before you can courageously act is like trying to move the cart without the horse. We're talking about fear today in this episode of the Your Rich Life podcast. So if you're ready, let's dive straight in. Now, here's the truth. Courage is the mother of confidence. Courage will always precede confidence. When we commit to seeing beyond our fears and envisioning a bigger and brighter future, and we take consistent acts of courage, confidence is the prize. Confidence is the outcome. So if you're holding yourself back in business because of fear, because whether it's fear of the camera, fear of the sale, fear of failure, fear of success, the first thing you need to do is understand that you cannot just generate confidence. Before confidence is courage. And you have to declare, you have to decide that you are going to master your fears. And that comes with this one understanding. I think this will help you see beyond it immediately. Most of the time when you talk about having a fear, it is not a fear. What it is, it's a decision to do everything you can to avoid emotional discomfort. 99.9% of the times when we're talking about having a fear, it's just a disguise. It's a disguise for us not feeling a certain emotion. We do not want to feel emotionally uncomfortable. Let me reframe this for you. So imagine that you've got a fear of video, whether it's live video or, YouTube videos, or whatever it is, you've got a fear of video. And I say to you, well, what's live video actually going to do to you? It's not going to physically harm you, is it? So how can you fear live video? And you really probably can't answer that. So what is the real fear? So if you go through the process of going and doing a video and you think about what you're actually really trying to avoid by not doing it, you're going to be avoiding a feeling. Now, whether that's you don't want to feel embarrassed, you don't want to feel like a know-it-all, you don't want to be called out on something, what's truly happening is that you're doing everything you can to avoid situations where you may put yourself in the position where you are going to feel an emotion. I've come to realise that fears represent emotions that we have been taught to avoid. Now, it may not have been a conscious learning, but if you was a kid at school and you didn't you was the last person to get picked for the netball team and you felt alone and ashamed and embarrassed, you've now got a frame for that. And that was so painful for you as a child that you would have found ways throughout your life there and after to avoid that level of pain. So I want you to remember that and maybe even write this one down. Fears represent emotions that we've been taught to avoid. Now, let's get back to you in your business. If you're really serious about building your business, you must, number one, start to have a deeper awareness of where fear is playing out and what it is that you're really trying to avoid. And number two, be far more attached to and motivated by the future vision than what it's going to take for you to act courageously every day to develop the confidence to face those fears. Because it's never about trying to remove the fear completely. What it's really all about is learning to manage them and see beyond them. And I think one of the things we should do is expect to have this element of, not wanting to feel emotional discomfort because we've spent our entire life trying to avoid it. And now we're putting ourselves in a position where we know there's a good chance that's going to happen. So the first thing we want to look at today is diving into the 4 primary fears that we all experience, so we're all trying to avoid. And what I've done is I'm going to go through these 4 and I'm going to give you a question for your consideration, as I do in every podcast episode. So make sure you write these down because these are going to be super helpful for you in order for you to develop the courage, to take consistent acts of courage, to develop the confidence that you want and what you need to move beyond those fears. So the first fear that we all have is the fear of rejection. And when you're in business, you're in sales. So if you've got a fear of sales, dig into the emotions behind that. social media, you're putting yourself on a worldwide platform to get trolled, to get ridiculed, to get embarrassed, to get shamed. Like, you've got to accept it. If you can't accept that, you can't be in an online business. So rejection is the first fear that we all experience. And here's what's really interesting. Like, every human being, we all have a desire to be seen, to be heard, validated, and loved. And anything that threatens this is an absolute no-no. Like, if you think that you're gonna get rejected in any way, like it's we don't want to experience that level of pain from an evolutionary point of view. So you've developed limiting beliefs and fears to avoid any situation. So this is the other perception I want you to think about, is that the limiting beliefs that you have now, whether they show up as a limiting belief, by the way, they generally tend to show up as a fear as well, they were once a solution for you. They stopped you putting yourself in a situation where you knew that uncomfortable thing was likely to happen. But now you're a business owner, and you know that being a business owner is going to aggravate all these kind of emotions that you're going to experience as you go through this process. And it's always going to be your choice whether you meet that head on or whether you back down to your dreams. So anything that threatens your innate desire to be seen, heard, validated, and loved is going to be a big no-no for you. So the question I've got for you on this one to help you move around the rejection part is, what would happen if you learned how to fully accept yourself? What would happen if you learned to fully accept yourself? Where if you did get trolled, if you did have someone confront you, if you did have someone call you out, or whatever your definitions are, and you totally and fully accepted yourself and your ability to communicate your beliefs and your values, and your emotions were not at the whim of anybody else because you loved and accepted yourself fully, what would happen? That's a question for you to contemplate to help you get over the fear of rejection. The next fear that we all have is this fear of ruin. I can pretty much guarantee that you are a master of catastrophizing. And by that, what I mean is you can play out a whole scenario from beginning to end and give yourself 100 different ways why this is absolutely the worst idea that you've ever had because ... Like, all these bad things are going to happen. You know, what if I lose my money? What if I lose my confidence? What if, my friends leave me? What if I lose my home? What if? And we can play these scenarios out. Could you imagine for just one moment what would happen if you invested as much time and energy in visualizing and feeling the best possible outcome rather than the worst case scenario? So what we need to think about is believing that you are totally capable of figuring things out. Because if you believe in your catastrophizing, if you believe in all these worst case scenarios and you don't take action because of that, what you're actually believing about yourself is that you don't have the strength, the resilience, the intelligence, or the ability to get the resources that you need to get yourself out of a sticky wicket. So has there never been a time in your life when you've had to adapt on a sixpence? Has there never been a time in your life where you've been in a really tough situation? I bet there has. I bet you've overcome something big. Did you survive it? Are you still here? Some of you may even have thrived from that situation. And let me give you another contemplation here. If somebody you loved, if their life was dependent on you stepping up to a whole new level and you didn't know how, but their life depended on it, would you find a way? Damn right you would. So you already have it, but this fear of ruin, the desire to not feel emotional discomfort, and not having a big enough drive, not having big enough necessity or motivation allows us to become a prisoner to the programming and not like a leader, a warrior for our dreams and the outcomes that we want. So the question we've got for the fear of ruin is, what is it going to take for you to invest in your vision and not your programming? What is it going to take for you to invest more in your vision and less in your programming? That's a really good journaling prompt for you. Let's go on to the fear number 3, which is the fear of regret. Now, do you ever wonder what you're going to say at the end of your life? I use this powerful question in my Success Superstar Formula program because a lot of people really struggle with their why. They struggle with their purpose, and I did too. And I got really frustrated with feeling like I didn't have this bigger meaning. So I devised my own framework called the Driving Force Framework. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a second. But when we think about getting to the end of our time, none of us want to regret our choices. None of us want to regret what we didn't do. None of us want to regret who we let ourselves become, but most people will. I know I've used this quote a lot, but this quote was a game changer for me, and it was Les Brown talking about, he was talking to a reverend friend of his who said, imagine that you were laying on your deathbed, and instead of the loving, caring eyes of your family and friends around your bed, it was the dark, hollow, angry eyes of the dreams that you never gave life to. And they said, because of you dying now, we will never get a chance to live. And that, I remember standing on the corner of the street, I was walking the dog, and my breath got sucked out of me, and then it hit me, and I just cried, because I was like, holy baloney. I don't want to have that conversation with myself when I get older. And so for me, that mortality motivation is huge. And when I'm really struggling, that's the thing that I engage myself in the most. Now, your actions and your attitude are the only things that will save you from regret. So my question for you here is, what do you not want to be saying at the end of your life? And moving on to our final fear, it's the fear of responsibility. Can I actually handle this? If my business gets bigger, I'm already so busy, can I handle it? If I earn more money, can I handle people asking me for money or expecting things from me? If I do this, can I handle all this other stuff? Because at the moment, you already feel so frantic, you already feel so busy, you already feel so overwhelmed. The subconscious thing about, I can't take anymore, I can't take the responsibility, I can't handle it. And you know what the biggest fear that you have about responsibility is? Owning your dream and the responsibility for its outcome. When you declare a dream and you've got limiting beliefs and fears around it, and you have to take full responsibility whether that dream becomes a reality or not, that's a huge responsibility. And that can be very, very scary. So you keep yourself busy, you keep yourself frantic, you keep yourself overwhelmed, but does that feel good? Are you getting what you want out of that? Wouldn't it be better to use your time more effectively and actually actively go and be more courageous and build that dream that you want? But when you stay there, what it does is it serves your expectations. Staying busy, staying frantic, staying overwhelmed, staying in anxiety allows you to keep supporting your programming. It serves the limited expectations that you have for your life and for yourself. And there, up until this point, those limited expectations of yourself and your life have not been your fault. But now that you know that they're there, if you choose to keep living into that limited expectation, that's your responsibility. If you choose to go beyond that, that's your responsibility. Everything that you create is your responsibility. And just on a caveat to that, listen, if you're a mum, you can handle anything. If you can handle childbirth, if you can handle the terrible twos and the effing fours, if you can handle teenagers, and if you can handle late teens and early 20s, if you're a mum, you can handle anything. Just a reminder about that. So my question for you as we finish off this particular episode around the 4 fears is this. If you took full ownership of your dream and its manifestation, what belief do you need to adopt about yourself? If you took full ownership of your dream and its manifestation, what belief do you need to adopt? I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Your Rich Life podcast. I know that I have. You know what to do. Please subscribe, leave me a review. And if you haven't yet, please come over and support my YouTube channel where I put these episodes up as well. And I will see you for the next episode of the Your Rich Life podcast.